Okay, I am live, and I do want to apologize for running a few minutes behind today. Um, we do have our guest here who is right on time, so I definitely appreciate that. I want to welcome everybody to the LITE Firestarters podcast. So if you've been watching, then you know the podcast is pretty much, various topics, but we try to make sure they're interesting. And I'm really excited that tonight we're talking about Bitcoin. And we have Drew. So if you've watched the podcast before, you know this is like a special interest topic to him that he's been studying for a couple of years now, and he's gonna get us to at least a basic understanding. We realized while we were practicing this that we kind of needed to do more of an intro, and it's not going to be easy to do, even though we usually podcast for now. It's not going to be easy to do. So we're gonna do our best to break it down. I'm gonna let him more or less take the lead and probably ask questions that you may be wondering as well, since this for me is kind of new too. Like I'll give you guys my baseline understanding so that for those of you guys that are watching for the first time or learning about this for the first time, maybe we're on the same page. But I've always been aware that Bitcoin is an investment, right? It's a good tool that we can use. The people who've told me about it were like, yeah, it was one of those crazy ideas that you didn't really want to tell people too much that you were doing. But then as it started to grow and catch on, I was making a lot of money, and it's been around these are people that have had it for now like 10 years. So Bitcoin is actually here to stay. And Drew's going to explain to us, why it's here to stay. But first, he's going to start off with saying, like how he got into it and just give us an overview. So I am really excited to let you, Drew, take over if you want to give them any more background info. Oh, I forgot to mention, I normally introduce my co-host a little differently. It's just that Drew's been on here a few times, so I think I've gotten comfortable and forgotten to share. I've known Drew for a long time. We more or less, in a sense, kind of grew up together. But since I started the podcast, you've seen him on here from more often a healthcare perspective because he does work in the healthcare industry. You can see he, put Nurse Drew out there, but he's just knowledgeable in a lot of different ways. He's has a lot of great life experience, and I don't know if there's anything else you feel like we should add and share just for people to know as we get into the topic tonight.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the intro and, just excited to talk about Bitcoin and all the positive things that have come about. And so, just to piggyback off a little bit of my background, yes, I work in healthcare. And what really got me started looking at Bitcoin was that, the pandemic hit. And so when the pandemic hit, everybody found themselves at home, and we were left with two choices. You could either, educate yourself, or you could, entertain yourself, one or the other. And so I've always been curious about just how, finances work, and, just money in general, because it's something that they really don't teach you in school. They teach you how to get a job and they teach you how to work, but they really don't teach you how money works itself. And so I've always been curious about that. And so I think in order to get the audience kind of up to speed on, why Bitcoin is so significant and important, I think we should start with just a quick history on history of money, and so just in general, when you ask yourself, like, what is money? Money is a technology. B, money is a medium of exchange, for human time. We go to work every day, and we give our physical time, and in return, we get a medium of exchange, paycheck or cash or whatever the case may be. And we use that, and we pay for goods and services from other people. We pay for somebody to build us a house. We pay for somebody to, take care of us when we're on vacation. We pay for, someone to educate our kids in school, and so on. So money is just a medium of exchange for human time. And at its foundation, it's just a technology. And that technology has changed over time. Every 75 to 100 years, the form of money typically changes. And so you can go back and look at the different forms of money or currency. We used to use seashells as a medium of exchange. We used to use glass beads as a medium of exchange. We used to use gold coins and silver coins as a medium of exchange. So money has always changed over time. The problem with the money that we've used over time is it's always been debased, and that's why the currency typically fails. And what I mean by that is too much is created, which causes inflation and causes the cost of goods or services to go up. And what that typically does whenever you dilute the currency, regardless of the form of currency, um, usually the currency fails over time. And so that's where we are currently. And just to kind of go over, what money is as far as its properties, just so everybody understands. So money or a store of value has five main properties. The first property is it has to be recognizable. In order for things to be considered so a store of value, we all have to recognize it. You have to agree it's valuable. I have to agree it's valuable. And everybody around us has to agree it's valuable. So it has to be recognizable. And that's what Bitcoin is currently going through at this time. Is it's going through mass adoption. More people are learning about it every day, which is exciting. It's been around for about 14 years now. And so any store of value has to be recognizable. It also has to be divisible. You need to be able to pay for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and you need to be able to pay for, the purchase of a home. Money has to be divisible. You need to be able to regroup it and divide it at any time. Money has to be durable. It has to last over a period of time. We couldn't have a bowl of oranges and say that that's our store of value, because the oranges would rot and then it would be worthless. And so money has to be durable. It has to last over a period of time. It also has to be scarce. That's what gives its value. It has to be scarce. And so everyone can't have $1 billion, because being a billionaire wouldn't mean much if everyone had $1 billion. So money has
Come on, we gotta figure that out.
No,
I'm just messing with
and money also has to be portable. And that's a big reason why gold has been the best store of value over the last 5,000 years, is because gold has all those properties, except it lacks in being portable. Gold's very hard to move. If you had a gold coin, you could put it in your pocket and take it anywhere with you. But if you had, a chest or a safe full of gold, that would be hard to move. And so gold has all those great properties, except it's not portable. It's very hard to move. And that's why the US dollar went on the gold standard, because that paper money gave it an opportunity to move your medium of exchange around easier. And so, speaking of the gold standard, for people that aren't familiar, how the dollar, so the dollar used to be on the gold standard, and how all that came about was in right after or during World War II. When Hitler was invading countries, what he was doing is trying to seize the gold in central banks. And so when other countries started to learn about that, they decided to move their gold to the U.S. The U.S. is one of the hardest, or the hardest country to invade, because it has seas on both sides. And so a lot of countries were shipping their gold to the U.S. as a safe haven. Well, once the U.S. got about 80% of the world's gold, they decided to get involved in World War II, because it was a war they knew they could win. And so they got involved, won the war. And whenever someone wins a war, you get to kind of write the rules of the game. And so the U.S. Was the winner of the war, and they decided to redo the financial system at the Bretton Woods Agreement. And so in 1945, all the countries agreed to have the dollar, the US dollar, as the world reserve currency, and it was going to be backed by gold. So for every 1 ounce of gold you had, it was equivalent to 35 US dollars. So that worked well up until 1971 because just like in ancient times, how they debased the currency, we started to do the same thing. And what I mean by that is we started to print more money than what we had in gold reserves. And so I believe Germany was the first country to kind of pick up on that. And they decided, hey, you know what? We want our gold instead of these paper dollars. And so a lot of countries started to request their gold back. And then in 1971, when our gold supply was starting to deplete, Nixon decided to take the dollar off the gold standard and put us on what they call a fiat currency system. And fiat means paper printing of money or by decree because I said so. So it's right now the U.S. dollar and any other currency in the world is not backed by anything, and so that gives every country the ability to print money, without having it being pegged to a hard asset such as gold. And so the problem with that is when you put too much money into circulation, that steals human time from one another. And so what it does is it debases the currency, and it forces us to work more hours to pay for the same things. And so that's something very important to grasp because a lot of times we assume that our house is becoming more valuable or our gold is becoming more valuable. And what's happening is you're seeing those assets start to collapse against the dollar, or you're seeing the dollar collapse against those assets, I should say. And so, for example, if you had a gold coin and you put it in your safe in 1945, and at that time it was worth $35, and today you took it out, and that same 1 ounce of gold is now worth $1,700. So ask yourself, what changed from 1945 up into 2022? Did that gold coin change? No, an ounce of gold is what it was in 1945 as it is today. Same chemical makeups, everything. So
But could the
nothing's
amount available have changed,
so
possibly?
so what's changed? What's changed is gold has become more expensive, right? But gold is
Mhm.
produced at 2% every year. So if anything, there's more gold available. So the price you would think would go down, but the price has gone up. And the reason for that is because we've put more money into circulation. So you have the same amount of dollars chasing the same products. And so what happens is you need more of those diluted currency dollars to pay for the same thing. That's why when COVID hit, and we printed trillions of dollars out of thin air. So when COVID hit over the last 24 months, we put 40% of the world's monetary supply system into circulation. So in 2 years, now you go back 276 years since um, we've been in existence in America, and in 2 months, or excuse me, 2 years time, we've put 40% of all the currency ever created into circulation. And so basically it was a lot of money printing in a short amount of time. And so that's why everyone's home values went up by 40%. What we saw is the dollar collapsing, the dollar collapsing against scarce assets being real estate, art, cryptocurrencies, things like that. We didn't see it collapse against consumer goods because remember when COVID hit, everything was locked down. So nobody was shopping in the stores because everything was closed. So we didn't see it collapse against consumer goods, but we saw it collapse against the dollar collapse against scarce assets.
Before
So
you go into a little bit deeper, I just wanted to clarify because you just mentioned cryptocurrency is a scarce asset. Bitcoin is cryptocurrency, right?
correct. And so cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, you'll hear those terms used kind of interchangeably. The easiest way to wrap your head around like what Bitcoin is, a lot of people look at it as cash, and it can be used as monetary value because it has all the properties that we went over. And it's more portable than gold. So a lot of people call Bitcoin digital gold. So you'll hear it called a currency. You'll hear it called digital gold. I think the best way to look at Bitcoin, it's a solution for our inflation problems, and look at it as digital property. And the reason I say digital property is because we've seen other forms of digital goods and services. So look at Amazon. Amazon is digital retail, right? Look at Google. Google is digital information. You look at Facebook, it's digital relationships. You look at Netflix, it's digital movies. You can go across the board and look at any industry, and what's happening is those industries are starting to dematerialize their products and services. And so Bitcoin will dematerialize property. And so the reason I
Did
say
you say dematerialized property?
correct. So
Okay.
so so what
I'm
is
trying to keep
gold?
up because this is, and guys, just for your knowledge, this is my second time around kind of doing this. So I did tell Drew, I was like, I'm going to be interjecting with questions because it's a lot to process and we don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So I'm trying to keep up as well. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I asked you that question, not realizing we go into some of the other stuff we had talked about before. But
Mhm,
I was really just trying to point out when you said that, it's scarce,
mhm,
that you had taught me, there is a limited amount of
mhm.
Bitcoin available as even as a cryptocurrency. But I'm hoping we'll circle back into that as we get into it more. But I didn't
Yeah.
mean to.
No, no,
I'm
no.
sorry, I
So
didn't mean to like change the
that's okay.
format or anything.
So the reason it's important that Bitcoin has a cap on it is because this is the first time in human history where a medium of exchange or a store of value has a cap, right? Gold doesn't have a cap. Gold is produced at 2% every year. So even if me and you had all the world's gold, stored in a vault somewhere, over time, 2% gets produced every year. So over time, we won't have all the gold in the world. And so it's important that any store of value remains scarce. And so with Bitcoin having a fixed amount, which is 21 million coins ever produced, that puts a cap on its store of value, which means regardless of the demand, the amount will never change. The supply will never change. And so that hasn't happened in human history before. Anytime there's been a store of value and there's been a high demand of it, humans have figured out a way to produce more of it. And so with Bitcoin, that changes things. And so it became a better store of value than gold, and gold was the best store of value for the last 5,000 years. And so it's important to know that Bitcoin is you can look at it as property, and we can go over a few examples of why Bitcoin can be considered property and why it can be considered the best form of property if you want it to leave it for your children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren. So if you compare, let's compare Bitcoin to cash. So if you had $1 million of cash and you wanted to leave it to your kids, it's probably not the best idea because we've seen how much money has been printed, especially in the last 24 months. So every time money's printed, you lose purchase power. And so leaving your money in cash over a long period of time when the monetary supply system constantly increases is not the safest bet. Meaning, so when COVID hit, like I said, we increased our monetary supply system by 40%. So meaning, if you had $100,000 in the bank and we put 40% more currency into circulation, you lost 40% purchase power. So your $100,000 could only buy $60,000 worth of goods and services. And so your bank account still says $100,000, but your purchase power has been diluted down to 60. And so keeping your money in cash is probably not the best way to pass it down to your family because you'll lose purchase power over time. You can keep it in real estate, but real estate has its defects also. So if you had $1 million piece of property and you wanted to leave it to your family, You have to pay property taxes on the property. In addition to that, you have to pay the maintenance costs, of the roof and the upkeep of the property. And we know what happens when you don't pay your property taxes. The government, will seize your property. And so if you think about an elderly person on a fixed income, when COVID hit, their property value went up by 40%. In some areas, it went up by 50%. And so think about the impact that has on an individual. So if you're on a fixed income and we print money out of thin air and it raises your home value by 50%, what happens when your home value goes up? Your property taxes go up. And so for an elderly person on a fixed income, maybe they can't afford to have their property taxes increased by 40 or 50%. And that's the oldest story in the game, right? I lost the family estate because I couldn't pay the property taxes. So you can see how that could be risky long term if your family can't sustain the cost of the estate on the property taxes. So real estate is a good investment, but Bitcoin's a better investment. And the reason I think that is because Bitcoin, it's a store of value that's, again, portable. And why is it important to have a store of value that's portable or digital property that you can move? Think about what's going on in Ukraine right now. They're at war, Russia's invading. So if you had a home in Ukraine, you're faced with a difficult, scenario. Do you stay and protect your home and possibly lose your life over it? Or do you flee the country and leave your property behind? Bitcoin being digital property means you can take your property with you. That sounds like a better solution versus leaving your property behind. Bitcoin can move at the speed of light. So if you're in one country and your family's in another, you can transport your property within seconds. That's never been the case with property before. That's one reason, like if you look at like the rich Russian oligarchs, the reason they own like yachts is because yachts are floating capital. So it can move away from you. And so if we had a yacht in the port of Miami and they said, December or January 1st, we're going to double the property, or the port taxes, on December 31st, we're just going to move the yacht, right? We're not going to keep our possessions in a place where it could be heavily taxed. And that's the beauty about Bitcoin is it's borderless. So you can move it. If they say we're going to raise the taxes on Bitcoin in Illinois, you can move it to Wisconsin. If they say we're going to raise it to Wisconsin, we can move it to Canada. So there's no incentive to go heavy on a property tax on something that can move away from you.
Well, what about, so you said though that you used Ukraine as an example and you were saying like you can't bring the real estate with you, but I guess I'm missing the part about like, well, money or gold, those were the alternatives and you're saying Bitcoin is better, but in that instance, that example you gave, would that still apply?
Sure. So if let's go back to Ukraine. Let's say it wasn't your real estate you were trying to take with you. Let's say it was your goal. What's going to happen when you get to the border, right? And a troop searches you. They can take your possessions, and gold can be seized. It's already happened twice in our country, right? Roosevelt seized the gold. Churchill seized the gold. So gold can be taken from you, whether it's by an individual or by a government. And so. Bitcoin works better because it's digital property. It's a lot more discreet. People walking down the street wouldn't know if you had $5 of Bitcoin, or $50 million of Bitcoin. And so having the ability to keep your property discreet is a lot more better in the long run. And as far as a store of value, it's something you can pass down to your family without, it's losing its value as far as paying property taxes, like on real estate. Gold, if they produce more of it, it can become less valuable. And so Bitcoin has a fixed cap at 21 million. Bitcoin is divisible up to 8 decimals. So you can reshape it, send it around the world in the speed of light. It's becoming more recognizable across the globe. It's definitely durable. It's digital. It'll last forever, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple times though that it's not divisible and that they've put a cap in. What's to stop them from creating more Bitcoin? I put that question in the comment section, but I
Mhm.
did want to make sure that we touched on that
Sure.
because um, like this is new to a lot of us, including myself. That's part of why I'm asking.
Mhm.
You talked about how we've printed more money. What's to stop more Bitcoin from being created?
So Bitcoin is transparent, and we may have to schedule another discussion for blockchain technology,
Okay.
because
I'm
it's on.
sorry, I'm gonna derail this a
It's
little
okay.
bit.
That's okay. Bitcoin's on an open ledger, and so what that means is that it goes through a verification process of couple 100,000 times a day. So the reason Bitcoin's been successful for so many years is it, it's
Okay, that's
impossible
key
to
to
hack.
know. We want to know why it's been successful.
Yeah,
So, all right, cool.
it's impossible to hack.
Hmm.
It's scarce. The creators of Bitcoin, is unknown. There's no CEO that controls it. There's no government that controls it. It's decentralized. And so, they don't know if it was a team of engineers that created Bitcoin or an individual. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. It's almost like saying who created the wheel. Nobody asks that anymore. We just we put tires on our car and we go about our day.
Yeah.
The same thing with the change of our currency, but change is scary, and
Hmm.
it's hard to get used to change or adapt to change. And right now, Bitcoin is it's still going through its infant stage. I think in the future, accessing Bitcoin will be a lot easier. Right now, in order to purchase Bitcoin, you would have to go on, one of the exchanges, such as Coinbase. And I guess I should have said it, before we started. This is not financial advice. This is, for education and entertainment
True.
purposes.
Yeah.
But
Yes, don't try to sue us. Don't try to cancel
right,
us for sharing
exactly.
information about,
Yeah,
something he learned while he had that, opportunity during the pandemic. So
exactly.
again, I do want to say thank you for coming on and sharing all this information with us. So I know you were about to get into like people could go in the exchanges, but if we could really briefly, because you went over a lot
Hmm.
in the last like 25 minutes or so.
Okay.
Um, so you said the first thing you really started with was making sure we went over those 5 properties and money. So could
Hmm.
you go over those again real quickly and then probably just bring us back into those key points? And I think the other thing I forgot to mention when we first started, when Andrew and I were talking about doing this, we talked about it not only as something unique and interesting, but that concept of leaving a legacy is so important, especially now, given everything that's happened with the pandemic, given all the changes we're all going through. And we were like, this is really something that is valuable. People don't have a lot of knowledge about. They're either, don't have enough time to learn about it, they're scared to learn about it, or they're just not. Well versed in something that's absolutely here to stay. And I feel like that's key for people to know is like Drew said, um, you know, people are finding that it's it's something that is being used more widely and it's consistently growing. We don't want you guys to miss out on this as an opportunity. So that's another reason why we were really like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's get people understanding Bitcoin. So I'm
Hmm.
sorry, it's just to go back. You were talking about, I had asked you to just review those 5 properties of money and then take us back into, other things that you feel have found really valuable and want us all to know.
Sure. So, just to piggyback off what you said about, a lot of people haven't had the time to really, look into Bitcoin. And I agree. The one way to look at it, is a lot of us will go to work and work 50 hours or 50,000 hours, right?
Mhm.
At a job for our career.
You
Um,
look like you're at work right now.
I just got off not too long ago. But um, we'll spend so much time dedicated to a job, 50,000 hours plus. But why are we going to that job? To make money, right? To generate income and make our lives better, to earn money. So it's probably a good idea to invest at least 1,000 hours into understanding what you're working for. What is money, right? And so um, uh, it didn't come easy. I'm not saying it came easy to kind of grasp some of this stuff, and I'm still learning. I have no idea how much more there is to kind of piece together, but I do know it requires some time to fully understand. And we can maybe leave some links, Miko, when we post this. That way, it's some helpful videos that would help, kind of navigate people through. And they'll probably do not probably, they will do a way better job of explaining it. Again, I've been, involved in this the last couple of years. So I'm just trying to share what I've learned over the last couple of years. But anyway, you asked about, to recap the properties of money.
Yeah, and just where you're taking us, since we're, about halfway through the podcast. I want to make sure for anyone that's just joining in that we just take the time out to do a little recap. Normally I'd be doing a commercial break, so I'll keep it brief even this time and throw that out there, that I want you guys, because remember, our goal is to share this knowledge, give you guys another way to leave a legacy, but just also for investment purposes. So that means you should share this podcast, comment, let us know if you still have questions, because, you know, uh, we have a little announcement to make at the end. We've already kind of hinted at it, but we do want to put a lot more structure, because 1 hour is really not enough to give you all that Drew has to knows about Bitcoin, but just in general, the concept is something that's it's for a lot of us foreign and newer. And even for those that are maybe closer to Drew's level, he's told me he even has like interesting discussions with other people that are investing in it. Like, it's just a very intriguing place to be. So don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, because we'll be doing more of this. But like I was saying to you, Drew, I just want people who may be joining in late today, or just coming in, just to like feel like they've been following so far.
Got it. Yeah. So the main things we've covered so far is, just kind of the history of money, and basically money is a technology, and money has 5 properties, or store of value has 5 properties. Those 5 properties are, to be a good store of value, it has to be recognizable, which is what Bitcoin is going through right now, mass adoption. Similar to like the internet. And remember, nobody knew what the internet was when it first came about, but the internet had to go through mass adoption, and now Bitcoin's going through the same phase. So money has to be recognizable. We all have to agree that this has value. Money has to be durable. It has to last over a period of time to retain its value. It also has to be divisible. You need to be able to divide it. Like with gold, you can melt it down and reshape it. Gold bars or gold coins or chains or whatever the case may be, gold rings. It also has to be scarce. Everyone can't have, $1 billion, because it wouldn't be worth anything if everyone had $1 billion. Money also has to be portable. You need to be able to move it across time and space, or move it from point A to point B. And that's why, the dollar has been a better mean of transportation. I guess when it went on the gold standard, these dollars were easier to move versus pieces of gold. But the problem is we inflated the monetary supply, and we had to take the dollar off the gold standard, and now it's on a fiat currency system. And that's why We're seeing so much trouble, domestically and globally now is because every country's on a fiat currency system. The US dollar is the world reserve currency system. And what that means is anytime we print money and put more money into circulation, it dilutes our purchase power, but it also dilutes the purchase power of other countries. And that's, if you live in a different country, you've seen your currency collapse over time, like the people in Zimbabwe, the people in Argentina. If you look at the Argentine peso, it used to be pegged 1-for-1 to the dollar. But over time, it's lost its value by a significant amount now. For one Argentine peso, I think it's 220. So if somebody told you in the next 20 years your currency was going to collapse and go from 1-to-1 to 1-to-220, what would you do? You would try to convert your money into dollars before it collapsed. So as much strain and struggle we're experiencing in the States, it's much worse in other countries, unfortunately. And so again, just to recap the properties of money, it has to be recognizable. It has to be scarce. It has to be divisible. It has to be durable, and it has to be portable. And so gold has been the best store of value that's possessed all those properties. The only one gold didn't really come through on was portability. And that's where Bitcoin now comes in. Gold is property, Bitcoin is property. Gold is physical property, Bitcoin is digital property. It has all the qualities of gold, just none of the defects. And that's important. It may not seem as important to us in the States, but it's certainly important if you're in a country such as Ukraine and you have to take your property with you. And it could be passed on, easily to your children and your grandchildren and so forth. And so having a store of value that you can move easily and pass down easily, and has a fixed, amount. It only has there's only 21 million Bitcoins ever created. And the crazy thing about it is there's 21 million Bitcoin. I think there's only, there's more millionaires in the US. I think there's 26 millionaires in the US. Globally, I can't remember how many, but, so if you have the privilege of accumulating one Bitcoin, just remember not every millionaire in the US will be able to have one in their possession. So that's how scarce it is, I guess, was the point I'm trying to make. And so, the reason Bitcoin changes all of that is because it's not manipulated by any government. No one can produce more of it. And that's all people want at the end of the day, is they want to be able to park their money, their hard-earned money, somewhere where it's going to hold its value over time. And, again, you can't do it with cash because money printing dilutes your currency. It dilutes your purchase power. It's hard to hold real estate over a long period of time because of property taxes and, maintenance costs of the property. Stocks, is a good investment. But something can happen in the stock market where, the CEO can make a bad statement publicly and collapse the stock, or, if the stock goes up by, 10%, then there's a obligation, fiduciary responsibility to issue more shares. They have that responsibility to the stakeholders. So, stock it's been a good investment, but Bitcoin right now just seems to be the best option on the table. And one thing to kind of keep in mind is things are becoming more expensive in fiat currency, in paper printing or paper money. They're becoming less expensive in Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is, if we go back, 10 years ago or 12 years ago when Bitcoin was a nickel, you couldn't buy much with it. But fast forward to today, when Bitcoin is worth $20,000, you can buy quite a bit with that one Bitcoin. And so as more money starts to pour into the Bitcoin network, you'll see its value start to go up. Bitcoin already hit $1 trillion market cap about 6 or 7 months ago. And at that time, the price of Bitcoin went up to $70,000 or just under. You're going to see institutions start to pour into Bitcoin. Right now, it's going through regulation. A good video to watch is a video on YouTube. Natalie Brunell is the interviewer, and she's interviewing Senator Cynthia Loomis in regards to Bitcoin. So that's a good video to watch if you just want to, learn how things are going to work on the regulation end. It's good to hear senators in Congress talking about Bitcoin, so it's not going anywhere. If you want a really good, just overview of Bitcoin, and I would suggest this for any business or any corporation, a great video to watch on YouTube is the interview with Ross Stevens and Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy. Ross Stevens gives one of the best presentations. And the cool thing about it is they're doing the presentation to a lot of CEOs of different companies, small businesses, large businesses. So he does a really good job of explaining Bitcoin in depth. So anybody that owns a business, small or large, or any corporation, definitely watch the Ross Stevens and Michael Saylor video interview. And then to piggyback off that, Michael Saylor. So the reason I bring him up, Michael Saylor is the CEO of a company called MicroStrategy. And they've invested they were the first publicly traded company to go big on Bitcoin. And he invested, I think his initial investment was $250 million. Then they doubled it to 500 million. And now they've invested a couple billion into Bitcoin. Elon Musk, everybody knows who that is. He's also invested $1 billion into Bitcoin. Some large companies are starting to pay their employees via Bitcoin. There's a company called Bitwage that will allow people to get paid, in Bitcoin. A good video to watch with your family. Anthony Papliano did a video. I think it's called "Why is Bitcoin Important Now?" And he just walks you through, similar to kind of what we did today. It was kind of a history of money, and then it leads into why Bitcoin is relevant. And then one of the other videos to, just get familiar with, there's another interview with Michael Saylor. If you YouTube Valuetainment, Michael Saylor interview, that was probably one of the best videos that I've seen, where someone just kind of takes you through their thought process on, what's important when it comes to decision making on where to park your money, and he shares his thoughts and philosophies. They also have a website called Saylor.org, where if you go on that website, it's free education, and you can take virtually any class, anything you're interested in, you can take it. They offer free education. So they offer a Bitcoin class. They offer classes in financing and marketing and leadership. It's a really good site to check out. I can go on, but this is probably a good, starting point for anybody that's just curious, to kind of get a little exposure. If you do decide to pursue, acquiring Bitcoin, one thing I would strongly suggest is, before you get too heavily involved, just get familiar with knowing how to take possession of your property, of your digital property. And what I mean by that is learn how to use, or get familiar with moving. You can purchase your Bitcoin on an exchange such as Coinbase or, some of the other platforms, but get familiar on how to move it off those exchanges. And the reason I share that with you is because, an exchange can file bankruptcy. And you can lose whatever money you have on the exchange. I actually experienced that with one of the exchanges called Voyager. So just be careful and, learn how to move. Had I known how to move my, crypto off the exchanges, I wouldn't have ran into that problem, but definitely know how to do it now. So just be familiar with having, knowing how to move your crypto.
Sounds like it was a hard lesson.
Oh, definitely, but those hard lessons are some of the best experiences, because those are the ones you never forget. And so the other thing I would say is, just get some skin in the game. People, even though Bitcoin's $20,000, you don't need to invest $20,000. You can start by investing $5, right? $5 a week, $5 a day, $5 a month, whatever is comfortable with you. Just get familiar with it, and no need to like go out and take a loan or do anything, out of the ordinary. I would just say, dollar cost average in. What I mean by that is just accumulate a little bit at a time at a rate that's comfortable for you. Allocate 1% of your portfolio, into Bitcoin or less, but just get familiar with it. The other thing to remember is this isn't a get rich quick, scenario. Investing is long term. And so look at the time horizon. You have to be willing to invest, I would say, at a minimum 5 to 10 years if you really want to see significant growth. If you look at the timeline of Bitcoin, because some people say, well, Bitcoin's volatile, it goes up and down. Well, that's true. But if you look at the trend, it goes up and down, but it's trending up. And so, when in doubt, zoom out, right? So ask yourself, look at the price of Bitcoin now and ask yourself, if I would have bought this 5 years ago, or 7 years ago when the price was $200, would I have more money today or less? And the answer is more. If I would have bought this when, 10, 12 years ago when Bitcoin was a nickel, would I have more money today or less? The answer is more. So zoom
How
out.
did you? I'm sorry. I love that you're talking about this, and I think it's really important too because in this day and age and with social media, you'll find that there's a lot of people, and you and I talk about there's scammers out there.
Mhm.
So, my question really was, how did you get comfortable getting into this, that zooming in and out and just getting started small or whatever fits your portfolio and your comfort level is critical.
Mhm.
And even before you go into that, I do want to share like Drew and I are doing this not because he's affiliated with any specific platform, nor am I. Like I'm honestly not invested in Bitcoin, but I wanted to learn and get my comfort level up. So let
Mhm.
me make that clear. Like not only did Drew say, hey, this is not advice, like financial advice, he's not considered an expert per se, but we just want to make sure people have this opportunity. But when you say these things about it's a long-term investment, 5 to 10 years, zoom in and out, just get started, even if it's just a $5 investment, how did you get to that comfort level to even start doing this before we probably have to wrap up? Like you covered a ton, and I think
Sure.
it was really valuable. But like I said, we do have plans on making sure this is digestible.
Yeah. No,
So
that's good. When the pandemic hit, like I said early in the podcast, I said, I decided to, just educate myself. I was reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and learning about stocks and gold at the time. And once I felt like I had a pretty good understanding, of kind of an investment strategy. What's crazy is I bought. I'll send you a screenshot when we're done with this podcast. But so I invested in a company called Barrick Gold, and that was in June of 2020.
on the regular stock market you're talking about?
Yep, the regular
Okay.
stock market. And then uh, 2 months later, a guy named Warren Buffett bought 51% of he bought the company. Uh,
Wow. Awesome.
yeah, and so
We all know who Warren Buffett is. Come on.
right. So that's when my confidence kind of really accelerated. I'm like, okay, I thought I was on to something. And then, learning about, Barrick Gold, just doing more and more research is how I kind of stumbled across Bitcoin, because a lot of people were calling it digital gold at the time. And so the more, and it takes time to get comfortable. I'm not saying, people are going to be comfortable right away. And what I would suggest to everybody, just, do your own research. Sure. Watch this podcast, look at some of the, videos I suggested, just get familiar with it, get comfortable. The more you learn about it and read about it, a great book is called The Bitcoin Standard. I literally just gave everybody at my job a copy of it. Uh,
We're excited about this, guys. We want you all to get excited about it. And I hope his preview is like piquing your interest and making sure that let me just go ahead and announce it. Drew and
Sure.
I want to do a series. It's geared towards, culminating in Christmas. If you want to, again, leave that legacy for your family, we want to make sure that by the Christmas season, you can feel comfortable making that investment in Bitcoin after we've given you way more than this 1 hour could do. So we will be planning for that and we will roll it out, but we wanted to do this one first, get some of the basics out of the way, give you guys that opportunity to ask questions as we prepare for this, but we are going to do that. So
Definitely. Yep, definitely. Looking forward to that. And I suggest just everyone just get comfortable with it. Do your own homework. Don't take my advice or anyone's. Just do your own homework and get comfortable with it. Look at some of the resources that I suggested. Something that kind of helped bring me up to speed. That's why I suggested those. I don't work for Bitcoin. Nobody works for Bitcoin. I don't work for any of these other, platforms or companies. Just wanting to share information with everybody to make their lives better, make their families' lives better, make our friends, anybody around us, just make their lives better and give them a solution to a problem that everybody's dealing with, which is rising costs, inflation. We all feel it, regardless of your race, regardless of your political preference, regardless of your gender. We're all experiencing the same problems, and so Bitcoin is a solution for everybody.
Yeah, and honestly, like Drew and I still both work. Like I've been building the consulting side of Love Inspire Teachy, or LITE for short. And he's in healthcare. I'm actually also in a new corporate position. That's why things have been changed up a little bit with podcast locations and whatnot. But he said, he's really excited about this. This is an alternative option, and he shared it with his coworkers. And I asked him too about, when did you get this comfort level? He's talking about a company that he invested in that was Warren Buffett bought, but they were talking about Bitcoin. He mentioned Elon Musk has bought, is involved in Bitcoin. When we had our conversation previously, he was talking about how some companies, like major companies, are building up a Bitcoin reserve. Did I say that correctly?
Yep, they're adding Bitcoin to their treasury reserve. MicroStrategy is doing it. And the cool thing about that is if you go and track MicroStrategy stock price and compare it to Bitcoin, it's trending together. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and he actually, so we'll get into it more next time, but he did say there's a way to kind of like ease yourself into Bitcoin and following it without actually purchasing Bitcoin. And I know it was related to that company, but the key that I want to drive home to you guys is that this is valid. He even said, like, so he gave the book to his coworker. He's like, they probably think I'm a little crazy because of how into this I am. But we also discussed when we did our prep for this, how a lot of times this stuff that just comes out, people are not comfortable with change. They're not comfortable with what they don't know. And you do get called crazy. And I don't know, why didn't you do it this time? Drew was talking about how Albert Einstein got crazy. He got called crazy, and yet he created all these things. Thomas Edison, all these different people in history got called these names, but there are certain things that they did that are long lasting. And we want to ensure that people get that comfort level there and don't miss this opportunity, because there are going to be big changes. And I don't know if this gives you that opportunity to kind of segue how, I forget who you quoted, but I thought it was Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase, or he used to be the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, where he was talking about there was this opportunity. See, I listened to him first time, but this opportunity where our market is shifting. And the whole point of us sharing this, me asking Drew to do this, and me getting even more excited after talking to him is like, this is something that we want to make sure people talk about amongst one another and make sure that we as people don't miss this opportunity to get in early, more or
Yep.
less. Because it's in longevity time, I think 10 years, I don't know how long Bitcoin's been around, but like knowing people who've been doing it for 10 years, to me, that's a decent amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And even when Drew talks about how it's a 5 to 10 year investment, that lets you know like there is long-term projections. These are major players, major names he's mentioned that they're into it. And granted, we know, billionaires, millionaires have money to play with, but when they start incorporating it into their company, putting reserves in, it's not just about the people who have the money to play with it. It's here to stay.
Yep.
So I hope that leaves you with some room to kind of touch on,
Yeah.
some more things you wanted to build on for us. So
Yeah, just to comment on what Jamie Dimon said. So Jamie Dimon is the CEO of Chase Bank, and Jamie Dimon, and this is one of the main reasons we're having this discussion, is Jamie Dimon came out publicly and said there's an economic hurricane down the road. We just don't know if it's a category 1 or a category 5. So that means, brace for impact. And I think we've already, have felt that. Our economy is, it's in a recession. They just haven't come out and publicly, mentioned that. It probably won't happen to after the elections. But we've had 2 quarters of negative growth, and so that, by definition, is a recession. So a lot of people are just looking for a safe haven. Where can I put my money and not have it lose its value? And a lot of corporations and companies are trying to decide that right now as well. Where can they park their hard-earned money where their companies don't go out of business? And so a lot of companies are adopting the Bitcoin standard and adding Bitcoin to their treasury reserve. And that'll be a growing trend. Fidelity, everybody knows Fidelity. Fidelity has Bitcoin also in their treasury reserve. So more and more institutions, BlackRock just partnered with Coinbase. BlackRock is the largest, real estate, firm in the world. They have, I think, like $8 trillion in assets. And so all these major players are getting ready to, flood the market. Right now they're just waiting for regulation. See, this is the first time in human history we've had an opportunity to front run Wall Street, right? We get to invest before they do. And that's a conversation for another day, because.
But if it's going to get regulated, like that again is letting you know that it's here to stay. So I'm hoping this is maybe a good stopping point for us and letting people know, keep an eye out because we will be doing this again in December. I'm going to give Drew the last couple minutes before we hit our like hard stop that if we want to post this, you guys, that we need to stay within. But I'm going to give him those 2 minutes to do his brief wrap up and set us up for next time in December, guys, not next podcast. So just so you know, we got some more prep we want to do and give you guys time to digest all this. So go ahead, Drew. Close us out.
Appreciate the opportunity. It's good. The unique thing about technology is we get to leave artifacts for our kids and families, right? We get to make these videos, and it's something they can look back on years when we're gone and say, wow, look at the conversations Grandpa Drew was having, and it's just really cool to be able to leave these artifacts for them and tools and resources. Again, a lot of this stuff is not taught in school, and so we have to teach each other, and so no one's ever really gone over how money works in school. We get taught how to get a job, but we don't get an opportunity to really learn how money works. And a lot of the problems we're facing right now is due to a flawed financial system, currency system. And I don't think it's by anybody's mistake or intention. It's just, it's flawed. And so Bitcoin is a solution for a lot of those flaws. Bitcoin is here to stay. And so I would just suggest to everybody, do your own, research, get familiar with it. We can put some resources in the link for you. be comfortable, dollar cost average, do what's comfortable for you. Put a $5, $10, just kind of get some skin in the game so you can know how to purchase crypto. You can learn how to move your crypto. And look at Bitcoin as like, digital property. Don't necessarily look at it as money, look at it as digital property. And just ask yourself, if I wanted to pass some form of property down to my kids and grandkids and so on, what's the best form of property to do that? And then just kind of circle through the different forms of property, whether it's cash, gold, land, real estate, or Bitcoin. So I'll leave it with that and let you decide the rest. But again, appreciate the time and looking forward to our series.
Thank you again so much, Drew. I really appreciate it. That was a lot of great information. I know I was taking a ton of notes again. So I'm definitely looking forward to December. We'll roll that out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and all that good stuff. But we want to be able to repost this, so y'all have a great night.
Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.